Hello everyone, today I'm going to be finally replacing the handguard on this AK with a B-10M from Zenitco. This has been a long time coming. This was actually, I had intended for this AK upgrade to be the very second video a long time ago in my AK upgrade series, but it took half a year to get here because of COVID. I ordered this through Outpost Armories. They did a great job, and it took a while. Not their fault at all. It was completely just Russia Post getting overwhelmed and COVID. So let's get this out of the bag here. So we've got the actual B-10M here, and then we have some instructions here. This side's written in Russian, and I think it's pretty cool. They have like a stamp of approval here to say it's legit. And then luckily the other side is English because my Russian is not good enough to possibly make do with the Russian side. However, I did already look up a video on how to install this beforehand, so I don't think it'll be too bad. But pretty much what I'm going to be doing today then is I'm going to be taking this, of course, and I'm going to be installing it in place of this regular, just Russian polymer handguard. And then in terms of the top, I'm going to see how it looks, but my plan here is I'm going to take the cheese grater dust cover, or excuse me, I'm going to take the cheese grater upper handguard off of this Wasser 10 and just put it onto the top there because I think it'll match pretty well with it. We'll see how it looks. This is purely just an aesthetic thing I'm going to be doing. So getting started, the first thing I'm going to have to do is get this disassembled. I've already checked that it's clear, so all is well and good. Now the hardest part is to get this off because this is particularly tight, even more so than on the Wasser. I can't even do this by hand. So that is why I grabbed a screwdriver, and I'm just going to kind of use this to force it up. There we go. There we go. Alright, now the next step is to get this part off. Oh, and I forgot that this is also super tight, so I'm going to need to use the screwdriver again. On the previous AK that I had in this series, the Romac 992, which I have since gotten rid of, this lever, let me get it up to the camera better. I remember on that Romac, this particular lever was so easy to actuate. I could just do it, probably even with my pinky, but this one is so tight, I can't do it with any of my fingers, which is pretty cool. So I'm going to use this again so I don't scratch any of the finish off. Very unlikely that would happen, but just in case. I just need to get it started. There we go, feels like it's started. Yep, perfect. And we got to slide this out of the way. Okay, that was a lot of effort, but this will come right off now. Or actually, no, it won't, because I forgot to take the cleaning rod out. So we got to get that out. That should have been step one, but all is well. Okay, now, when I was watching the specific video I was mentioning earlier was Zenitco's channel in English. When they were installing this, they were mentioning that if it doesn't fit, that you'll just want to hammer it in and not like file it or anything, because this is made out of aluminum, and when it's going into here, this will be the part that'll give, and it'll give a nice tight fit apparently. So hopefully it won't be too hard, but we'll find out. I'm gonna do that off camera because I want to do that in my garage, probably on like an anvil or a vise, because I don't want to destroy this desk, this table that I'm using. So I will do that, and I will be right back. One more thing I'd like to mention before I do go out and install this, I almost forgot to do this, is I wanted to compare the weights of these. Unfortunately, I don't have an actual scale that will accurately give me the weight of these, but just on like a comparison of like holding them, they feel pretty much the same weight. This might be a little heavier, but yeah, they're extremely similar. This probably is just a little bit heavier, but it really is negligible. Now I'll actually go and install this. Alright. It is done. This came on pretty easily after a bit of work. So what I had to do was get some help from my father because this was really hard to hold up at a good angle to where I could hammer down on it right up here and then hammer it down here. I did not have to end up filing it. I was worried I would because it was an extremely tight fit, it seemed like, but it ended up being good. But yeah, this might be like a two-person job. I definitely recommend it. It's a lot easier to have someone hold the rifle while the other person hammers this down. I was working on it for like 2 or 3 hours actually before that, and then I straight up got this in under a minute with help from my father. So definitely recommend that, but I don't know, maybe you have a better setup than me. I think a vise would probably help. Something like that, definitely. So one thing I wanted to address was, why am I using a Zenitco and not something cheaper, like for example a Midwest Industries here? And the reason is I did actually used to have this handguard on here, and the thing I don't like about it is that it requires you to have both the top and the upper and the lower handguard combined together because of the way it connects. And I didn't see any point in having a top Picatinny. Anything up here is pretty much too far forward anyway. If I ever wanted to put on like an IR laser, well, first of all, that would get blocked if I were to put a laser up here with these iron sights, but pretty much I have room on the side rails anyway. But if you're looking for a cheaper option to just get some good Picatinnies, I would definitely recommend the Midwest Industries as well, though I will not be doing a video on this because I'm never going to reinstall this on any of my guns just because I have something better now. This is also why I am attaching the cheese grater upper handguard instead of a Zenitco B-10M upper handguard, because it also, in the case of the Zenitco B-10M, that also locks into the lower handguard, and I like being able to remove the gas tube. That way I can clean out the gas tube every so often, a lot easier than having to unscrew a handguard every single time. I somehow almost forgot to mention it, but the main reason why I decided to use this Zenitco is because it will connect with the B-33 receiver cover, which will allow me to mount optics to the top of the rifle, but I have no intention of getting that anytime soon because I can't afford optics anyway. Second, I moved all the furniture that was on this onto the wasser from earlier, which I think looks pretty good now. My camera's too close to show the full thing, but yeah, I think this looks pretty good with all that on. It almost resembles like an AK-103, except it doesn't have the folding stock, but that's alright. Anyway, the next thing I'm going to do is get this reassembled. Alright, so that's on. Now I'll just finish up the rest of the reassembly process. One thing I'm noticing here is I'm having a little bit of trouble getting the cleaning rod pushed all the way in. I suspect something here is getting stuck, but I'll take a look. Alright, so the problem I was having there is that this, let's see here. So this is a bit hard to see on camera, but there's a hole right there in the back of this Zenitco handguard for the cleaning rod to fit through, and that's a little bit lower than it should be. That is really hard to see, but when I'm visually looking at it, it looks like it should fit through, so maybe it's just how it's fitting in my receiver. But at any rate, I just had to use a screwdriver and just kind of push down on the cleaning rod here just to get it in there. It'll make it a bit harder to actually use the cleaning rod in the future, but I kind of just have it on here for looks. I don't really use it that much when I'm actually cleaning the gun. I use a bore snake, and I have other cleaning rods anyway, so that's just kind of there for show. But anyway, last part is to get the receiver cover on. Okay, and now we are reassembled. So just right off the bat, post installation, I'm noticing these Picatinnies are particularly kind of unpleasant to touch. Again, I normally shoot with gloves anyway, so it's not much of an issue, but what I'm going to do is put some rail covers on here. I'm planning on putting a Magpul AFG foregrip here because I do quite like the kind of angle of the regular handguard, whereas on a Zenitco, or really any railed handguard, it'll of course be flat just to accommodate the rail. I'm using a mix of UTG rail covers and some Magpul ones, but I don't think I have anywhere near enough Magpul ones in here, so we'll have to make do. I actually had a bit of an issue with these kind of rubber covers just flying off on my other AK, the NAKM, that Wasser 10 from earlier, just from recoil, so we'll see if this one does it. I actually had the same problem with these Magpul ones though. Something with the recoil of the AK. So yeah, we'll find out. But that's not the point of this video, I'm just mentioning that offhand. And we'll see how it actually does out at the range. Starting out at the range, I decided to fire 2 rounds at 2 targets at distances of 25 and 50 meters respectively in order to test the ergonomics of the B-10M handguard. Prior to shooting, I suspected the B-10M would be pretty uncomfortable to shoot due to it being flat on the bottom. As I mentioned earlier, I quite like the regular sort of AK-74M style polymer handguards, and I find them to be quite comfortable. To my surprise, the B-10M was actually more comfortable by far. I suspect some of this was due to the rail covers I put on here. The added size from these fit my hand very well and made it even easier to shift from target to target. However, aesthetically speaking, I dislike these rail covers quite a bit, and I've already ordered some ladder style rail covers, which I will absolutely be replacing these ones with when they come in. Although these larger sized rail covers seemed to aid in my grip of the rifle, they block so much of the view of the handguard. It's like buying a Ferrari or a Bugatti and then just removing the logo. Next, I wanted to practice reloads. The reason I decided to practice reloads has in fact nothing whatsoever to do with the testing of the B-10M directly, but my plan was just to get a lot of rounds fired out of the AK to test heat dissipation with this handguard. I can't remember where I heard it, but another claim I heard regarding the B-10M is its aluminum material helps to dissipate heat more efficiently. I was really skeptical of this claim. My thought process was that since the handguard is metal, rather than polymer, it would conduct heat even more. At the end of my day at the shooting range, I found that this claim does in fact seem to hold true. While I did not measure the exact time the gun took to reach a certain temperature, I can anecdotally say that in the past I would normally have to wait around at the end of a shooting session, and I just have to wait for the gun to cool down enough to be able to be put away before leaving the range. However, this time I was able to immediately just put the gun away and leave. So in closing, I can say without a doubt I would absolutely recommend the B-10M. Although I have heard from a lot of people that the Zenitco products are pretty heavy, this specific handguard is a very comfortable weight. As I showed earlier, while it feels slightly heavier than the regular polymer handguard, it is completely negligible. I should mention it might be the case that other Zenitco products are in fact really heavy, but at least with this it's not the case. But this is the only Zenitco part I currently own, so I don't really know. The B-10M is easy to install and locks in extremely securely. Although it would be really awkward to use, I feel like I could mount a scope onto this and it would retain zero. Although of course there's a lot of other problems with that, and that's why I'm not going to do it. Lastly, of course it just looks really cool. I remember wanting to get one of these for a few years now, ever since I saw a video of some Spetsnaz in Syria using these. I would love to put the video up, but I don't even remember where on earth I saw it. The only downside is that these are not easy to find at all in the US. At this point in time, although I actually do want to order some more Zenitco parts, I'm not going to, because shipping from Russia currently is beyond abysmal. As I mentioned, this took me half a year to get. I've had bad experiences with Russia Post in the past, but somehow they have managed to find a way to get even worse, and so as a result I'm just going to wait until this all cools down before I order any other Zenitco parts. Thanks for watching. I hope you all found this informative. See you.